Hey fam, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristi. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I do have to talk fast because I currently have some banana bread in the oven and oh my goodness, I wish you could smell my apartment right now. It smells so good. There is nothing quite like the smell of baking goods, so I'm very excited for that to come out of the oven. But for now, I'm even more excited to talk to you about this topic. And while we're at it, trigger warning, again, this goes without saying, but as you could tell from the title of this video, we're going to be talking about eating disorders. So if any of that triggers you, please just click away from this video. It's not worth you being triggered.
Close, but we're strangers. Feel like we're far apart.
Can we just take a moment to acknowledge this sunburn? I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but I'm like, actually, I have this like red streak where I was burned earlier today. And that's because I've been working on this one political campaign for a while, and election day is right around the corner. So I was actually outside waving signs, and as much as I was trying to cover my face with the sign so I didn't get burned, I apparently got burned anyway. So that's why my neck is red. As anyone with an eating disorder knows, eating disorders don't happen overnight. You don't just wake up one day and magically have an eating disorder. So as I've been going throughout this journey of recovery, I've spent a lot of time thinking about how, when, and why I developed an eating disorder. So I've actually put together a list of 8 items that contributed to me developing an eating disorder. This list isn't all inclusive. It's not a comprehensive list necessarily, but I do think it gives a pretty good explanation as to why I ended up developing an eating disorder in my late teens. So number 1 is personality. I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist, and I also tend to be just a little bit obsessive. I wouldn't say that I'm OCD, but I definitely do have some obsessive traits, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's even the correct term. I tend to be a little bit obsessive at times. And research has shown that a lot of people with eating disorders tend to have more of a perfectionist attitude. I definitely have had this since I was young. I always thought I had to be the best at everything, and everything that I did had to be perfect. And if you add my bit of obsession in there, my obsessiveness in that mix, you can see how it would be easier to develop an eating disorder, because when it came to my body, I thought it had to be perfect, and little things like eating healthy and exercise, I became really obsessive about. Number 2 is genetics. Research has seemed to indicate that eating disorders can be genetic, so they tend to run in one's family. Now, this doesn't mean that just because you've had someone in your family with an eating disorder, it doesn't automatically mean you will have one, but it probably does raise your chances of developing an eating disorder at some point in your life. While no one has told me this for sure, I am pretty sure that there is a member of my family who had an eating disorder. She tended to be really obsessive about food and made a lot of disordered comments, and she clearly had a bit of body dysmorphia. So back in her day, I think that mental health and eating disorders were very stigmatized. I highly doubt that she ever would have sought out professional help if she even realized that she had this problem. It makes me sad because in this day and age, although there is still some stigma around mental health, we're definitely worlds ahead of where she was when she was growing up. So I think I did have a bit of a predisposition to developing an eating disorder. Number 3 is high achiever. I guess this can kind of relate to number 1, but I'm going to put it as a separate category because I was definitely an overachiever. Like, everything that I did, I had to be the best at. I had to win competitions that I entered. I had to have better grades than all my peers. I was definitely an overachiever. So when I got it into my head that I needed to fix my body, I was all in, and I definitely went overboard. And also, no one needs to fix their body anyways, but that's a topic for another time. All right, number 4 is environment. This is a bit of a tricky one to talk about just because I know that my parents love me and they've always wanted what's best for me. But the reality is that they always had very, very high standards for me. And growing up, I always felt that I wasn't good enough. I felt like I wasn't smart enough. I felt like I wasn't going to be a success in life, and I felt like I wasn't pretty enough or thin enough. I felt like I didn't fit in with my family. There were a lot of comments that were made to me growing up about my weight and my intelligence, and I just honestly spent a lot of my life feeling worthless, feeling like I wasn't measuring up. A lot of this had to do with the way that I viewed my body, and for most of my childhood, really felt like my body wasn't good enough and it wasn't measuring up to the standards of my family. All right, this leads us into number 5, which is negative self-image. So a combination of all the other items that I mentioned led me to have a very negative self-image and very negative body image. I always hated the way that I looked. I genuinely can't remember a time where I was confident and happy in my body. I'm sure there were moments, you know, if I was wearing something that I thought was flattering, there would be a moment of saying, hey, you know, okay, like I can be confident in this, but there was never like a consistent confidence. I never felt like my body was good enough. Even after I lost a lot of weight, by the way, it's worth noting, I did not feel like it was enough. I always felt like I had to lose more, and I always felt like I needed to do more to have that perfect body. Number 6 is role models and influences. So it was just pretty common for my mom and my friends' moms and parents to talk a lot about dieting and weight loss. I think that's something that still goes on today because I hear it a lot from my friends and people that I work with. I feel like it's a constant discussion, like, oh yeah, like I'm on this diet or I'm trying to lose this much weight. Anyways, when I was growing up, it was actually really hard for me to hear because when I heard the adults talking about the diets that they were on and how much weight they were losing, I thought that I needed to be doing the things that they were doing, even though I was really young. Like I was probably 10, 11, 12 when I remember hearing one of my friend's moms talking about how she was doing this, I'm not going to say what it was, but this very dangerous diet that no one should be doing. And I went home and I was like, yeah, mom, like I need to be doing that. And my mom got really upset. I don't know why she was upset at me, but it was not, hey, let's get to the root of why you're thinking this. It was, don't talk about that. That's ridiculous. But anyways, hearing these things from my mom or from my friends' moms and just in society in general, it really impacted me and made me believe that I needed to be doing those things. I needed to be dieting and I needed to be losing weight. Okay, number 7 is going to sound kind of weird, but bear with me, and that is religion. So I was actually raised a Seventh-day Adventist, and for those who don't know, Adventists put a lot of emphasis on what is termed the health message. And now everyone has a bit of a different view as to what the health message is and what it entails. What I learned was that there were good foods and bad foods, and there were good times to eat and there were bad times to eat, and there was the right kind of exercise and there was the wrong kind of exercise. And not only was there like good food and bad food, but health and food and exercise became linked to morality. It wasn't just, oh, you should eat this way because it's good for you. It was, you should eat this way because God wants you to eat this way. And so I really got it into my head that if I wasn't taking utmost care of my body, if I wasn't eating just, you know, the cleanest foods and exercising every day, I was actually sinning. Food and exercise became a moral issue. So if you can imagine that added layer of pressure, right? Like you have pressure from parents, you have pressure from society, and then you have pressure from God. And if you're not doing all the right things, you feel like you're sinning. Thankfully, I don't believe that now, but it definitely altered the way that I viewed food and exercise and my body as I was growing up. All right, last but not least is opportunity. When I left for college, I was completely autonomous. Growing up and even at this boarding academy that I went to, there was always someone who was watching out for me or cooking my meals, and I had a very strict schedule. But when I went to university, I was completely autonomous. There was no one telling me when or what to eat or how much I should exercise. There was no one there to point out that I might be losing too much weight, anything like that. I was autonomous, and I was in the position to be able to do pretty much whatever I wanted. And that just created the opportunity for my eating disorder to thrive. So those are 8 factors that contributed to me developing an eating disorder. I really hope that you found this video helpful or insightful in some way. I really appreciate you watching to the end. And if you found this video helpful, just go ahead and click that subscribe button, and I will continue to post videos about this subject. If anyone is out there struggling, just know that I am here for you and I am rooting for you and I love you. And I will see you next time.